someone in class to be, you be Jane and they can be Fumiko, just call on someone who you think may have done the work. I don't want to embarrass anybody if it is embarrassing. Okay, so you're going to be Jane, call someone to be Fumiko.
How do you exercise?
Okay.
You want to be Fumiko? And Hike, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just do it the whole time. If you did it, then we'll hear your conversation.
Can I start?
Yes, please.
Hi, Fumiko. How are things going?
Really well, but I need some pointers about something.
Sure. What?
Typing.
Tippy.
Tipping. Yeah. Tipping. I just don't understand it. Are you supposed to leave a tip everywhere you eat? This is really bothering me. I never had to worry about this before. We don't tip in Japan.
Yes. You don't?
No, you're not really supposed to do that. It's all included in the service charge.
Tell me more. Have you had a problem with this?
Yeah, last week a Chinese friend of mine and I had a dinner at a restaurant. We knew we ought to have given a tip. But
I'm sorry.
What is that?
We knew we were supposed to leave.
we're supposed-
We're supposed to leave. Where is it?
Was
Oh yeah, it's in this last category over here.
Yeah.
In the last column, I mean.
Mhm.
So we're supposed to leave for number 4, but everything else you did was correct.
Mhm.
So if you put we're supposed to leave in another blank,
Mhm.
it might mean that you have to change that one too.
Yes. How much did you leave?
About 25%. Should we have left?
More. Whoa, 25%. That's quite a bit. The chefs must have been really good.
Actually, it wasn't. The waiter was pretty rude and slow.
If you are not satisfied with the chefs, you don't have to leave anything.
So how much should you tip the waiter if you were satisfied?
Between 15 and 20%. 15 is the usual.
Okay, now here's another question. I'm confused about what you're supposed to do if you were sitting at a lunch counter instead of at a table. Should you leave anything for the person behind the counter?
It's a nice gesture. Why do you ask?
Yesterday I had lunch at the cafeteria counter. The waitress was really nice and polite. I felt like I could have left her something.
I ought to have given, I think it's I ought to have given her, not could have left.
Oh. I put this in last one. Yes.
So the last one is, did you know? Well, you could have left something,
Yeah.
maybe 5 to 10%.
Mhm.
Now, did you hear all those answers?
The number
The
two
last
is-
one, well, you could have left.
Yeah, you could have left something.
Number 9.
Number 9, for number 9 and number 7, you can have either answer. So in number 7, you could say, should you leave?
Okay.
Or you could say, should you tip?
Oh.
Either answer is correct because they have the same meaning. And number 9 is the same way. In number 9, you could say, should you leave anything or should you tip anything? So 7 and 9 are reversible. You can use either form. For number 3, you're not really supposed to do that. That means you're not supposed to means it's not expected in society. You're not supposed to. Now remember, even though you see the words not really, remember the word are. You are. You can't, as I mentioned yesterday, there's another verb that's just the verb suppose.
Unsafe
That means
situation.
guess. But in this case, when you have are supposed, it means it's expectation. Luis, number 6, you don't have to leave. It means it's not expected. You don't have to leave anything. If you're not if you're not satisfied with the service, you don't have to leave anything. It's not expected. That's what that means. It's not required. Did you hear all the other ones? Okay. I'm going on to page 60. All right, so it says here, but you had to read exercise 3 to do part B. Okay, and will you tell me, Lulua, will you tell me what you said for number 2?
I didn't.
Okay.
Should.
Okay.
Should.
So the American, but according to this story, the American woman thought the baby should, or ought to, or was supposed to. Should or ought to means this is a good idea. So what it says here is, in American culture, the American woman thought, put the baby on the floor, let him move around, it's good. And the reason we could use here, this might be strange for you, but we say, she thought the baby should. And that means ought to. Say, crawl. And I also said is another possibility is was supposed to. Now, you might be thinking, how could it be that this is past and this is present? How can we do that? But if I change this to past, it will be should have, which means it didn't. And that's not true. I can't do this. I can't, even though I use past here, was is the past of is. And this answer is good. It means at that situation, in the story, it means it was good for the woman thought, yes, the baby, she thought this at that time. The baby was supposed to crawl around. But and this is past, and that's correct. But this is not past. This is present. But if I change it to past, it changes the meaning, and it's not correct anymore. Because in the story, the baby, she wanted the baby to crawl around. But if we say should have crawled around, it means that the baby didn't crawl around. But the baby did crawl around. That was the problem. If you didn't read the story, it's hard to explain what I'm trying to say, because it's all about the context. Okay.
Excuse me, this exercise related to exercise 1 or 3?
No.
So
Is the example from exercise 1?
in part B, it's all about what we read.
No,
Oh.
3, 4.
The ball, yes.
4, yes.
Oh,
Let's do the
this
reading.
one is about going back to that couple there.
Okay.
Yes. And yeah, about the American couple should have done. Yeah, I should have had you read that. What about number 3? Let's see.
In Berlin, residents believe that babies must be picked up and held most of the time.
We would say not. We probably wouldn't use must.
Should.
In should or ought to, or even are supposed to.
Don't have to.
Have to be picked up? No, this is not so much of a requirement. This is like a good idea. Because it's not a requirement to pick up babies. It's just your own personal view. Like it's a good idea. Now, we know this should be present tense because the word's in Bali. That means like in general, in their country. Also, see how it says parents? That means in general too. Parents means in general, this is what parents believe. Parents believe that babies should be picked up and held most of the time. That's different than the American culture where it says babies should be allowed to, or should be crawling around. That's what we believe. That they shouldn't be held all the time. They should be able to have their own freedom.
Or supposed to.
So you could have said are supposed to be picked up, or should or ought to. When you say are supposed to, it means there's pressure from somebody outside. When you say the word must, it sounds like it's a written rule. But these kind of things are social rules and not written.
Even have to have the same as must, because they said that we didn't let the babies crawl.
Let's see, they have to be picked up.
No.
We don't like it. You can, it's a little bit strong, because it sounds like a requirement. But it can't be a requirement to pick up a baby, because it has to just be a choice. Like there are situations where you have to, if there aren't enough seats, you have to put the child on your lap. That sounds like a requirement. But just at your house, I don't know if you have to pick up your baby. Lisa, what about number 4?
The Balinese mother no doubt felt that her American guest is not supposed to put the baby down.
Good, but I would say past tense, because see how it says the Balinese woman no doubt felt? This means like in the story at that time.
She said.
I would say wasn't supposed to,
Or should have.
shouldn't have.
Shouldn't have.
Negative. Shouldn't have. Oh wait, now put the baby down means on the floor. But the American woman put the baby on the floor. And the Balinese woman said, felt you shouldn't have done that. That was a mistake. It was a bad idea. That's what that means. So you could have put shouldn't have or wasn't supposed to. And I think you said isn't. Now isn't means like in general, but this is the story and it's finished. Okay, and then number 5, Nimias, what about this one?
Shouldn't.
Shouldn't or aren't supposed to. And again, you guys see how it says in Bali? That tells me again in general. And we go back to present tense. Do you understand that? Do you see in number 3 and 5 in Bali, and then children and parents, it's plural. When you read this, you know it means general. General truths, a simple present. Children shouldn't crawl, or children aren't supposed to crawl. Children aren't supposed to crawl. That's too much like what animals do. Okay, and then number 6, Dagash, will you read yours?
Should. Most American parents believe that their children should
Yeah.
crawl.
Crawl. Should crawl, ought to crawl, are supposed to crawl. All of those are good. Okay, so I will give you, if,
Lara,
yes?
can you repeat number 3, please?
You could put for number 3, should, ought to, or are supposed to. Hey, are supposed to plus crawl. Or, no, be picked up. Are supposed to, should, or ought to. Now, you guys, look at your answers for supposed to. Did you put a D after it? So you spelled it correctly? S-U-P-P-O-S-E-D. Okay, because it has to be V3 for it to be correct. But you can't hear it, especially when you say supposed to. You can't hear the D, but that is there, and so you have to remember that spelling. I'm gonna ask, if I didn't, see with exercise 4, I forgot to remind you to read that. So if you didn't read it, just give it to me tomorrow, please.